Hello, friends, and welcome back to Ashes in the Past. Find a comfortable spot, leave today's worries behind, and join me as we step back in time to uncover a fascinating true story. Let's begin. Imagine a city that began as a small settlement beside a river. No vast kingdom. No great army. No ancient empire. Just a handful of villages scattered across 7 hills, overlooking the Tiber River. Nothing about this place suggested that it would one day rule much of the known world. And yet, from these hills emerged an empire that stretched from the misty shores of Britain to the burning deserts of North Africa, from the Atlantic Ocean to the mountains of the Middle East. Its soldiers conquered kingdoms. Its engineers built roads, aqueducts, bridges, and cities that still stand today. Its laws shaped governments. Its language influenced hundreds of millions of people. And its ideas became the foundation of much of Western civilization. History remembers it simply as Rome. For more than 1,000 years, Rome rose, conquered, expanded, struggled, and endured. It survived invasions, civil wars, political assassinations, economic crises, and ambitious rulers who repeatedly reshaped its destiny. Many believed Rome was invincible. They were wrong. The empire that seemed destined to last forever eventually fractured, weakened, and fell. But its story did not end there. Because even after its armies disappeared, and its emperors were gone, Rome continued to influence the world in ways few civilizations ever have. So how did a small city beside the Tiber River become the greatest empire of the ancient world? And why, after centuries of unmatched power, could even Rome not escape the passage of time? To answer that, we must begin with a story that lies somewhere between legend and history. The tale of 2 brothers, and the founding of the Eternal City. According to Roman tradition, the story of Rome began with 2 brothers, Romulus and Remus. Legend tells that they were the grandsons of a rightful king, but before they could inherit his throne, they were condemned to die. Placed in a basket and cast into the waters of the Tiber River, the twins were carried downstream by the current. Against all odds, they survived. The basket came to rest near the riverbank, where, according to the famous legend, a she-wolf discovered the infants and nursed them until a shepherd found and raised them as his own. Whether the story is true, historians cannot say. But for the Romans, it explained something far greater than the birth of 2 children. It explained the birth of a civilization. As the brothers grew older, they decided to build a new city. Then the dream turned to tragedy. A bitter dispute arose over where the city should stand, and in the conflict that followed, Romulus killed Remus. According to tradition, Romulus founded Rome in 753 BC, giving the city both its name and its first king. Legend and archaeology do not always agree. Modern evidence suggests that Rome developed gradually from several small settlements on the 7 hills overlooking the Tiber, eventually growing together into a single community. But one fact is certain. Its location was ideal. The river provided water and trade. The nearby hills offered protection. And its position at the heart of the Italian peninsula made it a natural meeting place for merchants, travelers, and armies. Rome had found the perfect place to grow. Now it had to survive. Because the small city on the Tiber was surrounded by rivals, and its greatest challenges were only just beginning. In its earliest centuries, Rome was ruled by kings. But according to Roman tradition, the people eventually grew tired of royal power. In 509 BC, the last king was overthrown, and Rome chose a different path. It became a republic. Instead of a single ruler, power was shared among elected magistrates, the Senate, and popular assemblies. The system was far from equal. Wealthy families held enormous influence, but it introduced the idea that no one person should permanently control the state. The Republic faced constant threats. Neighboring tribes attacked. Rival cities competed for land. Every victory demanded another battle. Yet with each conflict, Rome grew stronger. Its citizens developed a reputation for discipline, organization, and determination. Defeat rarely ended a Roman war. It simply meant preparing for the next campaign. Over the next 2 centuries, Rome steadily conquered the Italian peninsula. Former enemies were often incorporated as allies, expanding Rome's military strength rather than weakening it. Roads linked newly conquered territories. Colonies secured strategic regions. The Republic became a rising power. Soon, Rome's ambitions stretched beyond Italy itself. Across the Mediterranean stood another great civilization. Rich, powerful, and determined to dominate the same sea. Its name was Carthage. The struggle between these two republics would become one of the greatest rivalries in ancient history. And it would produce a commander whose name still echoes through military history today. Hannibal. Rome's greatest challenge did not come from within Italy. It came from across the Mediterranean. There stood the powerful city of Carthage, a wealthy maritime empire whose ships controlled much of the western Mediterranean. As Rome expanded, conflict between the two powers became inevitable. The struggle became known as the Punic Wars. The First War gave Rome control of Sicily and marked its emergence as a naval power. But the Second War would test the Republic as never before. Its architect was one of history's greatest military commanders, Hannibal Barca. Instead of attacking Rome by sea, Hannibal chose the impossible. He marched his army across the towering Alps, bringing tens of thousands of soldiers, cavalry, and even war elephants into Italy. The feat stunned the ancient world. 4 years, Hannibal defeated Roman armies in battle. At Cannae, he surrounded and destroyed one of the largest Roman forces ever assembled, inflicting one of the most devastating defeats in military history. Many believed Rome was finished. But Rome refused to surrender. Instead of seeking one decisive battle, the Romans gradually weakened Hannibal by avoiding direct confrontation, rebuilding their armies, and attacking Carthage itself. Eventually, Hannibal was recalled to defend his homeland, where he was defeated by Scipio Africanus at the Battle of Zama. Rome had survived its greatest enemy. The victory transformed the Republic. Carthage's power faded. Rome became the dominant force in the western Mediterranean. But success brought new problems. As wealth poured into Rome, so did ambition, inequality, and political rivalry. The Republic had defeated its greatest foreign enemy. Now, its greatest threat would come from within. Rome had conquered its enemies. Now it struggled to govern its own success. As the Republic expanded across the Mediterranean, unimaginable wealth flowed into the city. Victorious generals returned with treasure, enslaved people, and new territories, while Rome became the center of a rapidly growing empire. But prosperity was not shared equally. Powerful senators and wealthy landowners accumulated enormous estates, while many ordinary farmers found themselves unable to compete. Economic inequality widened, political corruption increased, and public unrest became increasingly common. Attempts at reform often ended in violence. The brothers Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus tried to redistribute land and improve conditions for ordinary citizens. Both were killed, revealing just how deeply divided the Republic had become. Soon, ambitious generals discovered a new source of power. Instead of depending solely on the Senate, they earned the loyalty of their own soldiers through promises of land, wealth, and victory. The Republic was changing. Its armies no longer fought only for Rome. Many now fought for their commanders. Civil wars erupted. One powerful leader challenged another, each claiming to defend the Republic while weakening it further. The system that had guided Rome for centuries was beginning to break apart. Amid the growing chaos, one general rose above all the others. A brilliant commander, a gifted politician, and a man whose next decision would become one of the most famous moments in history. His name was Julius Caesar. By the middle of the 1st century BC, no Roman commanded greater loyalty than Julius Caesar. His conquest of Gaul brought vast new territories under Roman control and made him one of the Republic's most celebrated generals. His victories earned him wealth, influence, and an army fiercely devoted to him. That success alarmed the Senate. Many senators feared that Caesar had become too powerful. They ordered him to give up command of his army before returning to Rome. Caesar faced a choice that would define history: obey the Senate or defy it. In 49 BC, he led his army across the small Rubicon River, a boundary that Roman law forbade a general to cross with troops. According to tradition, Caesar declared, "The die is cast." Civil war followed. Caesar defeated his rivals one after another and emerged as the undisputed ruler of Rome. He introduced sweeping reforms, reorganized the government, expanded Roman citizenship, and even reformed the calendar, creating the Julian calendar, whose influence remains visible today. But absolute power came at a price. Many senators feared that Caesar intended to make himself king, ending the Republic forever. On the Ides of March, in 44 BC, a group of conspirators surrounded Caesar during a Senate meeting. Within moments, Rome's most powerful man lay dead. His assassins believed they had saved the Republic. Instead, they unleashed another civil war. And from the chaos of Caesar's death, a new leader would emerge. One who would transform Rome from a republic into an empire. Caesar was dead. But the struggle for Rome had only begun. His assassination plunged the Republic into another devastating civil war, as rival leaders fought for control of the Roman world. Among them was Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, a young man whom many initially underestimated. He proved them wrong. Forming an uneasy alliance with Mark Antony and Lepidus, Octavian helped defeat Caesar's assassins. But the alliance soon collapsed, and the Roman world was once again divided between powerful rivals. The final confrontation came in 31 BC, at the Battle of Actium. Octavian's fleet defeated the combined forces of Mark Antony and Cleopatra VII of Egypt. With their defeat, no rival remained capable of challenging his authority. Rome had a single ruler once more. Yet Octavian understood the fate of Julius Caesar. He avoided calling himself king. Instead, in 27 BC, the Senate granted him the title Augustus, marking the beginning of the Roman Empire. Although many republican institutions remained, real power now rested in the hands of the emperor. Under Augustus, Rome entered a remarkable period of peace and stability known as the Pax Romana. Roads expanded across the empire. Trade flourished. Cities grew. Monuments transformed the capital. For the first time in generations, much of the Roman world enjoyed relative peace. The Republic was gone. In its place stood an empire unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen. And, over the next 2 centuries, Rome would reach the height of its power, wealth, and influence. For nearly 2 centuries, the Roman Empire entered its greatest age. From the reign of Augustus to the era of the 5 good emperors, Rome enjoyed a period of remarkable stability, prosperity, and expansion that historians call the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. At its greatest extent, under Emperor Trajan, the empire stretched from Britain in the northwest to Mesopotamia in the east, and from the Rhine and Danube rivers to the deserts of North Africa. It governed an estimated 70 million people. No empire had ever controlled so much of the known world. But Rome's true strength was not measured only by its armies. It was measured by what those armies made possible. More than 250,000 miles of roads connected distant provinces, allowing soldiers, merchants, and messengers to travel with remarkable speed. Aqueducts carried fresh water into growing cities. Massive amphitheaters entertained thousands, while public baths, bridges, and harbors became symbols of Roman engineering. The empire was held together by law. Roman citizenship gradually expanded beyond Italy, giving millions a shared identity. Local cultures often remained intact, but they became part of a larger Roman world connected by trade, administration, and infrastructure. For many people, Rome represented order, security, opportunity. It seemed unstoppable. Yet beneath the surface, new problems were quietly emerging. Defending such a vast empire demanded enormous resources. Political rivalries returned. Economic pressures mounted. And beyond Rome's frontiers, new enemies were gathering. The empire had reached its highest point. From here, the road would lead downward. At the height of its power, Rome appeared invincible. But the greatest threats were no longer beyond its borders. They were growing from within. As the empire expanded, governing millions of people across 3 continents became increasingly difficult. Emperors rose and fell with alarming speed, many gaining the throne through military support rather than peaceful succession. Political stability began to disappear. Civil wars became more frequent. Armies sometimes fought one another instead of defending the empire. At the same time, Rome faced growing economic problems. Heavy taxation burdened ordinary citizens. Inflation reduced the value of money. Maintaining enormous armies and defending thousands of miles of frontier became increasingly expensive. Meanwhile, pressure along the borders intensified. Germanic tribes tested Rome's defenses in the north, while the powerful Sasanian Empire challenged Roman authority in the east. The empire found itself fighting on multiple fronts, stretching its resources ever thinner. Recognizing the growing crisis, Emperor Diocletian introduced sweeping reforms in the late 3rd century. He reorganized the government, strengthened the army, and divided the administration to make the empire easier to govern. Later, Constantine the Great founded a magnificent new capital at Constantinople, shifting the center of power toward the eastern half of the empire. The reforms bought Rome more time, but they could not solve every problem. The empire had survived another crisis. Yet it emerged weaker than before. And soon, the Western Roman Empire would face challenges from which it could never fully recover. By the 5th century AD, the Western Roman Empire was struggling to survive. Its economy had weakened. Its population had declined in many regions. And its armies increasingly relied on Germanic soldiers to defend borders that stretched for thousands of miles. Then came a series of migrations and invasions that transformed Europe. As the Huns advanced westward, many Germanic peoples fled into Roman territory, seeking safety. Some settled peacefully. Others fought. The pressure on Rome's frontiers became relentless. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. The city of Rome was sacked by the Visigoths under Alaric. For the first time in nearly 8 centuries, the Eternal City had fallen to a foreign army. The psychological impact was enormous. If Rome itself could be captured, was the empire still truly invincible? The answer came decades later. In 476 AD, the Germanic leader Odoacer deposed the young emperor Romulus Augustus, traditionally considered the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire. No great final battle marked the end. No dramatic collapse. The Western Empire simply ceased to exist as an independent imperial state. Yet this was not the end of Rome. Far to the east, another Roman Empire still stood. Its capital was Constantinople. Its people still called themselves Romans. And for nearly another 1,000 years, the empire would continue to preserve Rome's laws, culture, and traditions. The West had fallen, but Rome itself refused to disappear. When the Western Roman Empire fell in 476 AD, many believed the story of Rome had come to an end. It hadn't. In the East, the empire continued from its magnificent capital, Constantinople. Modern historians call it the Byzantine Empire, but its people never used that name. To them, they were simply Romans. For nearly 1,000 more years, the Eastern Roman Empire preserved much of Rome's government, military traditions, and legal system. It became a bridge between the ancient and medieval worlds, protecting classical knowledge that might otherwise have been lost. One of its greatest rulers was Emperor Justinian I. During the 6th century, he sought to restore Rome's former glory by reconquering parts of Italy, North Africa, and Spain. Although many of these gains proved temporary, his most enduring achievement was the Corpus Juris Civilis, the body of civil law. Its influence would shape legal systems across Europe for centuries. Constantinople also became one of the world's greatest cities. Its massive walls withstood countless sieges. Its markets welcomed merchants from 3 continents. Its churches, including the magnificent Hagia Sophia, inspired generations with their architectural brilliance. Yet even this enduring empire could not last forever. After centuries of war, economic strain, and growing pressure from the rising Ottoman Empire, Constantinople finally fell in 1453. The last Roman emperor died defending his city. At last, Rome was gone. Or was it? Because while the empire had disappeared, its greatest legacy had already become part of the world itself. More than 2,000 years have passed since a small settlement first appeared beside the Tiber River. The empire it created is gone. Its legions no longer march. Its emperors have become history. Yet Rome never truly disappeared. Its laws became the foundation of many modern legal systems. Its engineering inspired roads, bridges, aqueducts, and public works that still influence construction today. Its language, Latin, gave birth to the Romance languages and shaped countless words used across the world. Even the calendar we follow carries the legacy of Roman reform. The ideas of citizenship, representative government, and public administration that developed in Rome continue to influence nations centuries after the empire's fall. When we walk through a modern city, study law, read history, or cross a stone bridge, We are often following paths first laid by Rome. Few civilizations have left such a lasting imprint on humanity. Rome's greatest achievement was never simply the territory it conquered. It was the civilization it created. An empire can command armies. A civilization can outlive empires. That is why Rome is remembered as the eternal city. Not because its empire lasted forever, but because its influence did. Empires rise. Empires fall. But some ideas become timeless. And that may be Rome's greatest conquest.